Saints Row, what went wrong? This question is going to be asked a huge number of times for the rest of the year. How the hell do you have a series of games based on sandbox freedom, out-of-the-box humor, and Pandora's box weaponry, where every time you reached in, you had a new, different item that you were going to be able to get? How do you end up turning all of that into this? Why do you think it is? In this video, I'm going to give you the 3 main reasons why we are now looking at a Saints Row-less future from now on, and how a beautiful and fun mess turned into just a mess. Subscribe if you like these kind of videos, and check out the reviews. 3 reasons. Number 1, technical problems. Saints Row is a mess. Perhaps not the almost hilarious breaking point that we saw in Cyberpunk's original release, but it's also not trying to do what Cyberpunk was aiming to do. It doesn't have as many systems, as in-depth attempt at RPG elements, nor an interesting story, really, at all. But the problems remain here. Videos already cropping up of the crippling amount of bugs and gameplay issues. My own issues, including guns facing the wrong way in battle for the entire fight, not being able to shoot at all, are just some of the issues that you'll run into. Thank God he couldn't, otherwise he would have shot his own damn face off. How does all this happen? Saints Row has always been a game that played fast and loose with the open world nature of these kind of titles. Sometimes the bugs were visible, but it's almost impossible to explain what's going on here, because when you look at the old games, you realize a massive amount of that out-of-control chaos that existed in the original titles isn't here. Yet this makes it appear like Gat out of hell is a prophecy. You have AI that spawns inside buildings or on the freeways, above mission areas, in the water. You have cars and helicopters and people just transforming into one another, shadows flickering in and out, and pop-in that would get its own channel demonetized if it could upload itself to YouTube as false news. These aren't completely unknown for even the best of games out there. Elden Ring had its own issues, so too did Horizon Forbidden West and Dying Light 2. But what's stunning about Saints Row's issues are the technical problems in relation to the other 2 I'm going to go on to now. Number 2. Saints Row seems like it's almost an attempt to explain to the gamers what they liked is bad now. Now stick with me. This is an woke, anti-woke kind of thing. I talked about this in the review. The developers continued discussions about sexual innuendo and all the things that they wanted to get away from. Seemed like the developers themselves didn't understand that the undercurrent of their being uncomfortable wasn't the only part of what Saints Row fans actually enjoyed. And yet when they removed one part, they forgot to fill it with something interesting. In the old games, there were trucks. You could spew sewage out of sewage wagons, making enemies slip and slide around. There were moments of hilarity, singing along with the songs as a zombie, being a super agent, or in the Matrix. Hell, even Gat Out of Hell attempted something completely different. Each title building upon the other, and when you decide that you're going to reboot, you have to identify exactly where you're aiming. The problem here is that where everybody else was aiming down a particular track, these guys were on a completely different range. And I think you can see a lot of examples here. Saints Row had an entire game with the character's name in the title, Gat. That goes a long way in telling you exactly what fans may have liked about the series. But it's nowhere here in the game because there's no personalization. And customization, it's one of the things that everybody wants for a main character. It's wanted, needed, loved, and they gave us that. Even a lot of people, if you played the default male model Shepard in Mass Effect, you always knew that there were some of us out there playing Commander Creepy Pants Skeletor-looking dude, leading the crew of the Normandy into weapons fire of the enemies, so ugly that a lot of people probably were hoping our characters would be put out of their misery. The reason this worked is because Shepard was one piece of the puzzle. The other was the characters. This is the same way that Saints Row worked. Ones that you loved or hated. Gat or Julius, Troy, Dex, Lynn, each one had a spot, and even if that spot was smaller than the others, they were known for something. The straight man sticks out in a group of fools. So even Dex, who was the voice of reason, was interesting because he was just that. But this version of Saints Row, it's completely lost. They think putting a waffle tattoo on a character makes them unique or noteworthy, that having a second in command that dresses like a leprechaun but also has great math skills is somehow a character worth even learning about. Saints Row was personality that was based upon the out-of-the-way and out-of-the-brain-pan kind of style characters, as well as out-of-your-mind antics. That is what gave it that unique imprint that at times was going directly up against the big blockbusters of the time, including GTA. But the big problem with number 3 is there is no sense of focus. Saints Row didn't seem to understand that you can grab 40 ingredients and you can throw them into a bowl. Each may taste good on its own, but only a friggin' homicidal maniac would just mix horseradish and lemon concentrate and drink it. Separate ingredients in games come together to add texture at different times, like that crunch on the outside of a candy bar only to have caramel inside. It's how they layer across one another that creates the difference between something good and something that's just a melted mess. Even though they do try at times, Saints Row never seems to get it right because they don't set anything into any one position and sort of concrete it there. You do amazing missions with one character, but after that, you really don't mention it again or take any advantage of it. Characters don't talk amongst themselves one-on-one afterwards or have any real engagement. The story rarely brings any of that up. Hell, the story rarely brings anything up. You get cool skills, but it's hard to even tell where they're coming from or why they're even there. There's not even a joke about it. Sometimes you can lie a little to tell a lot, but Saints Row doesn't do that. And I think some of those abilities are hilarious, but it doesn't really fit together. You get abilities that aren't really used in the sandbox sense either. Like every single thing that they added, they wanted to control so much that they didn't know where to let you use it. Even the grapple, which lets you tear around the world with other vehicles or items dragged behind you, seems like it was because they watched Fast and Furious one time, but then like bowling with bumpers at night, they wanted to make sure it wasn't used too much or that in any way that could really change the world and create that over-the-top anarchy. Even the introduction to flying vehicles like the helicopter is handled in the weirdest way possible, with a random guy just giving you a job to fly, no one caring, nobody talking about any experience with any of your characters having even an over-the-top action kind of sensibility. But you may think to yourself, that doesn't really matter until you take off and you only have to fly like 400 feet to get to the actual mission area, and then you turn right back around, easily within sight of everybody, even though it's supposed to be somewhat of a stealth mission. Saints Row's failure to commit to almost anything isn't just sad from that perspective of a time of the year when not much is coming out. I don't care about that as much, nor do I suggest that people get this just because nothing is coming out. That's like rewarding a volleyball tournament first place award to the ref because the two teams couldn't get there because their buses crashed. It really is sad that this has probably single-handedly destroyed any chance, any iota of possibility of getting the game series to move forward. But the biggest misstep is that the game feels like its entire reasoning for being here was to tell gamers what you should like versus looking at the past titles and seeing their success would suggest that you like. And then in some warped desire to push that on you, they forgot to actually do the new elements correctly. Saints Row used to be a game that poked fun at the world, but even better at other games in its genre like GTA. And I can see wanting to slightly change those for today's current events. It's just like satire. You do want to have your satire at least be somewhat modernized. Now, though, I can envision other games coming along teasing the making of this game, laughing at people thinking that a ton of time spent on waffle jokes would somehow be funny or awesome. What's worrisome is even without these changes and ignoring the woke, anti-woke kind of back and forth that really does no one any good, I don't know if they had gone to try to do a Saints Row that was even in somewhat the same vein, we would have got a good game, because despite the last two issues, this game still does fall down in the one particular place that would have impacted it even if every single element was spectacular, and that's technically, because this thing is pretty rough. Still, it's a title that if you can get it on a deep sale, you might want to, but man, just really sad when you look at this and what it may have suddenly done to the Saints Row franchise. So I'd like to know what you guys think about these reasons, especially after you play it, what you guys think of gaming as it is now. What games are you interested in? If you get a chance, thumbs up this, subscribe, and of course, join up on the Patreon if you want to play some D&D, hang out with some friends, listen to some music, or talk video games. Thanks for subscribing, doing all that, because you guys keep the channel going. Peace out, and I hope you guys have an awesome week. Oh, stay tuned for new videos.
Hi everyone, it's Az here from Heel vs. Babyface. Good news. As probably quite a lot of you will know, I'm a massive Batman fan. I have been really, when I say seriously, since 1989. Not that that really means anything. You know, when the Tim Burton movie came out, that was just something special. As a kid, I'd grown up on the 66 TV series and whatnot. But Batman has been just a wonderful hero, a wonderful character that I've enjoyed over 30 plus years, which got me into comic collecting in 1992-93, and been until recently, till about 18 months or so ago, was a comic collector of all this stuff. Now I just focus on getting back issues and wonderful runs from creators of yesteryear, because the modern stuff just literally isn't worth the paper it's written on. And it's been so sad to see a decline in the modern hero, particularly when Batman himself has had just such a rich vein of films. Let's just forget the Schumacher ones. Okay. Pretty rich vein of films, and of course the incredible animated series, which went into the new Batman Adventures as well, which wasn't quite as good as the OG, but compared to the stuff we get now, absolute genius. Now, I think it was last year that the DC Fandom event, they announced that they were going to do this animated adventure. Bruce Timm was coming back, and they were going to call it Batman Caped Crusader, and it was going to be set prior to the animated series. So prior to the relationships developed between Gordon, etc., and more in the line of the development of the villains. And they were going to really lean into this 1940s kind of gothic, Art Deco-ish, German Impressionist style, including the architecture, the garments that they're going to wear, the haircuts, and all this sounds brilliant, which was very, uplifting, because that DC Fandom event was one of the most embarrassing things I've ever watched in my life. Every single solitary announcer that came onto the stage, blah, 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 inclusion, diversity, inclusion, representation. You're just like, oh, piss off. The buzzwords which kill everything. And before I go into this article from Variety, I want you to hear it from the horse's mouth himself. This is coming from Bruce Timm as he is promoting Batman Caped Crusader at Fandom.
The way we deal with the characters is going to be quite a bit more modern in terms of inclusivity, representation, things like that.
And then the devil himself appears when you say those words. Inclusivity, representation. It's a little bit more modern. What a lie. Again, the great lie that Hollywood have only just become inclusive and diverse, as if black people, women, brown people, Asians, gay people had never existed before. And the wonderful aspect of this, of course, is the reason why they didn't have representation was it was our fault somehow. So there's the made up lie about inclusion, representation, etc. And then there's the blame as if it was our fault. Okay, sure. But those words now, I mean, even then, they're just clear markers that this is dead. This is dead already, dead on arrival. Because inclusivity and representation and diversity, these buzzwords which we use, we all know by now that these are just masking far left ideology, far left politics. That's all it's doing. That's all it's been doing for the last few years, which has turned our entertainment from escapism into a prison cell. We can't escape. We want to Everywhere we turn, the news, blah, 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 Biden this, Trump that, yeah, 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 yeah. Republican, Democrat, Conservative, Labour. Everywhere we go, there's nowhere to escape. So when we sit down for our entertainment, what do we find it just chock full of nowadays? Politics, modern day, not invented politics, not this is a world that has been created and it's been created with its own rich and diverse peoples and mythology, and there's this great political scheming going on with this sector. No. It's got to be Trump. It's got to be Biden. It's got to be conservative. It's just chock full of current day politics and ideology, whether that ideology be intersectional feminism, third wave feminism, fourth wave feminism. It doesn't matter what comes before the feminism. The feminine aspect just means misandry, hatred of men, hatred of, well, far left politics just basically means hatred of anyone that disagrees with me. And I can't say that the right is doing too much better either. It's just a mess. So when somebody says, oh, we're doing a modern take and it's going to be inclusive and diverse and represent, it's just like, I'll just go fuck off. Just piss right off. It means that you're going to plow your politics into it and it's going to be garbage. Even with Bruce Timm there, even with the team that came from the Batman animated series, it doesn't matter. Because as we've seen from people returning from Star Trek TNG to do Picard and Discovery and stuff like that, they're fucking pathetic. Chock full of modern ideology, modern far left ideology as well. Marvel Phase Bore, or as Gary calls it now, Stage 4, which isn't wrong because it is fucking cancer. Everything from Black Widow to She-Hulk has just been riddled with feminist ideology, hatred of men through and through. And the entertainment aspect, the characters that we used to love, gone. Reduced to pathetic, either pathetic whimpering men, or in the case of Black Widow, a great character done dirty in her own movie because they had to push the new Black Widow, which is basically the fucking same. It's just another fucking actress. So whenever we get that inclusivity, representation, diversity, you know what you're in for. You're in for a shit fest. And now that I've got that rant out of my system, and all these pathetic window-licking ankle biters on Twitter, they know exactly what's coming as well. And I used to hear a term from them quite a lot. Why does it matter? Why does it matter if they're doing this? Why does it matter if they turn this character gay? Why does it matter if this character gets race changed? Well, I've got news for you. Why does it matter that these shows are being cut, particularly by Warner and particularly by David Zaslav? Huh? Why does it matter? Because you seem to be getting pretty riled up about this. But here we go. Batman Caped Crusader animated series from Bruce Timm, Jar Jar Devilface, Matt Reeves, not moving forward at HBO Max, will be shopped elsewhere. So just to make it absolutely absolutely clear, sorry. HBO Max don't want this. And it's being shopped out. And do you know what shopped out means? It means there's no home for it at the moment. It means they're putting the feelers out if another network wants to take this. And that doesn't mean it's guaranteed one. Now, obviously, the Batman brand is going to be very attractive for some, something like Peacock or something something like that. But HBO Max, which recently, of course, shelved Batgirl, race change Batgirl with a transsexual friend, because, you know, we got to cater to the 0.0000. Oh, wait, no, they're not trying to do that. They're trying to cater to the trans trenders on Twitter who pretend that they are because they're desperate for fucking attention. Oh, and by the way, they make up probably about 1% anyway. Because it's not about entertainment, it's about pushing your message, pushing your ideology. So currently, this thing, even though it's still going, you know, even though it's being shopped out, nowhere to go right now. Nowhere to go. HBO Max has cancelled 6 upcoming animated series, including Batman Caped Crusader, Variety has learned. The project was ordered to series in May 2021 with Bruce Timm, Jar Jar Abrams, and Matt Reeves attached to executive produce. The other series on the chopping block were Merry Little Batman. Jesus Christ, just the sound of that. The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie. Bye Bye Bunny, a Looney Tunes musical. Did I Do That to the Holidays, a Steve Urkel story. An Amazing World of Gumball, the movie. Wow. They all sound crazy good. Production on all 6 continues with plans to shop them to platforms besides HBO Max. Warner Brothers Animation is the studio for each, with the exception of one of them. Batman Caped Crusader was meant to build on Batman the Animated Series, which was co-created by Tim and aired for 85 episodes from 92 to 95. Just think how revered Batman the Animated Series is. And this series is like, nope. So work that one around in your head. Absolutely beloved Batman the Animated Series. Arguably one of, if not the best animated series ever made. And a lot of people argue that it is. I think, you know, there's a lot of competition there, but I think it's absolutely amazing, Batman the Animated Series. And here you have the spiritual successor, even though it comes before, but you know what I mean. And Warner, Discovery, whatever it's called now, are like, no. And this is in production. So they know what they're getting. They know what they've seen. They know what's been produced. And they're like, we've seen it. No. Not going on our platform. We'll try and sell it elsewhere. We'll try and flog it somewhere else. But it ain't good enough for our platform. And I think that speaks absolute volumes. But there again, my excitement, which was rocket high when they were talking about this, died the moment we got the corpse speak. And let's just play devil's advocate for a moment. Let's just say Bruce Timm was forced to say that, because that's been the message throughout the whole of the fandom, is inclusivity, representation, diversity. All that buzzword bullshit, which just means politics, far left politics. Let's just say he's pushing. Look what happened. Look what happened. It looks like it wasn't just buzzwords. It looked like there is something in that material that was looked at and deemed, nah, not for our platform. Maybe some other woke company will take it, but not our platform. Holy cow. Would it be hilarious if it ended up on the CW? Just saying. So there we go. Batman Caped Crusader cancelled at HBO Max.
Games.
The feelers are out to see if anyone else wants to take it. That doesn't mean it's a gimme, but, you know, it's Batman.
It was a bit everywhere, rampaging through new games, DLCs, early access titles, without even really a pause. But the game that ended the show is probably the most interesting of all the titles, and that's Dead Island 2. We finally got to see CGI trailer as well as a gameplay trailer. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of this stuff. But let me ask you a question, and the requisite question that'll cause you to think that you need to answer it and will engage with the video even longer. That's going to be, why do you care about Dead Island 2? I got to tell you, the reason why I care is because Dying Light 1 and Dying Light 2 and Dead Island 1 and Dead Island Riptide, not Riptide, but the other ones are all favorites of mine for various different reasons. For example, I really did like Dying Light and its ability to use parkour and its weapons, but I liked Dead Island even more for its guns, its modularity, and in some weird way, its sense of humor. And we get to see a little bit of that mimicked in these trailers. So I'm going to walk you through the CGI trailer and then the gameplay trailer, looking at what I think are a ton of hints about what we're going to get. Intelligent way for them to do that kind of thing. There's a lot of mimicry in the overall art style that we saw in the original game. Everything from the surf and board kind of her forehead of a glitch in the lighting, indicating this is actually real, not something CGI'd, which we've seen before, or which that was right there. Also, the blood effects and the trailing, they do a really good job. I'm going to slow this down and go back because we're starting to see a lot of elements of the different destructibility, the traps, the environmentals that we'll see. So what I'm going to do is go back and show this just a little bit slower so we can talk about some of the parts that I've definitely noticed here. I think the blood systems are a big step up. Notice the streaming, and I'm going to slow this down so you can see it a little bit, like right there. You can see that blood streaming down and how it's that full screen effect. This is also an indicator of real gameplay. You throw the shuriken, hits sort of the top of her head, but the bottom of her head comes off. I'm actually very happy we see those kind of things. Not that there's an imperfection there, but because there is an imperfection there, and we can tell that this is not all fakery. This is actually a very cool effect. There's no reflection in the ground, if you'll notice. But again, what we see is really that actual gameplay going on here, and the blood, the different effects. This is not bad at all, the breaking of that glass. Again, it's not something that we might expect to see in a major AAA title right away, but this has 6 months going. And then we start to see effects like this. So I've slowed this down a couple times and I've looked at the footage multiple times, and this definitely does appear to actually be within the game. I was looking at a couple errors and it didn't seem to be any kind of CGI cutscene, and you definitely see some bad LOD on the palm trees. But this location and the destruction that we see here and the pivoting and movement of that fence is very cool to suggest something on that other side. I dig this. We don't know exactly what it is, and we certainly don't know if that'll be replicated everywhere, but we do see more destruction than I think we saw in the original. Also, take note of that clown. Now we start to see the elements. We do know that within this game, there's a number of different elemental effects that you can have on enemies, including electricity, water, fire, so forth. But those electricity and water kind of elements do overlap this time. For example, fire will be put out by water, but electricity can be spread by water. We know that's for sure something that is actually built into this game. But what interests me even more is then, does that appear to be a situation where you can turn on the power in some areas, sort of like you could do in Dying Light? How exactly to set this up? And there's also police cruisers that look like they've been driving around, again indicating that of course we do have the ability to drive cars around, which I really did like in the original Dead Island games. I think they added a lot. Again, we start to see that destruction coming up here in this scene, as well as a lot of weapon hints and just suggestions of what you can do, including this, boom, punch right through the face with the gun. The interaction of these characters, this looks like a slightly older part of the video game. I would most likely assume, just if you look at some of the lighting in the fridge scene. Especially if you look close, I love to see the flies there flying around. But if you look close, some of the post-processing doesn't seem to be done, or doesn't seem to be the exact same level of some of the other gameplay elements. And that's why I do firmly believe that what they've done is they've taken different parts of the game and recordings that they've had of the game from different times when maybe they were running on an engine that might have been a couple months old, which is completely fine. It's just something you definitely notice where sort of the detail in some of these characters is higher or lower. I do like that setup. I love that box in the background, this side up, and you see all this just nasty chemical. We don't really know exactly what that is, but you see it replicated later on in the game, and it looks like it could be possibly a trap, or maybe just a place where this chemical comes up, and it could also be like the Libre tar pits. I really do think the animation is excellent. This old lady holding this up, but here's what I want to show you. Clown. Did you see that? Let's look at it again. And this is the same clown that was on that wall earlier. So old lady, clown. Now, while I don't think this is true, I swear when I first saw this, it looked like he was eating Batman, and that Batman was on the left and what looked like his cowl, and that he was supposed to be the world's weirdest version of the Joker, but I don't think that's actually what's occurring. One thing you notice take a big step up is the animations and the hits. Now, you are a little bit far away from this character, something that we've seen in some games. That one might have hit, but you see a lot of different, very good animation for some of these hits. I would like that collision detection to be just a little bit tighter, for that character's distance to be a little bit closer. But we start to see a lot of different damage levels. Watch this one. Boom. Look at those eyes punch out. Now, yes, it does punch out again a little bit before you punch in, which actually indicates to me once again that the actual distance isn't being sort of identified as well as it should be when it comes to how far away you are, because that effect comes up. But it doesn't matter. In full gameplay mode, that's going to be awesome. Also, I don't know where this is, but it looks like there's a roller coaster there. And when I saw that in the original trailer, I didn't really pick up on it. Now let's talk about the guns for a second. The guns are going to have elemental elements to them. I really dig that inlay on the shotgun. But the different elements, I'm quite interested to see what we're actually going to get from these. If it's just going to be, you know, your water, your fire, your electricity, ice, and how those play out, because some of these, like this gun in particular, looks like it's shooting very small rounds, cinder style rounds that obviously do fire, but they don't have a lot of recoil, where some of the other guns do. You know, will that impact everything? And of course, let's talk right now about Hugh Hefner. This is an excellent location for Dead Island to actually occur. I think this is something with Hugh Hefner, with the various different movie stars that you have in this location and in this city. You can do all kinds of stuff, just like we saw with various movies that poke fun at this. This is something that the developers have talked about, where it is a B-movie style kind of game. So the idea of going in here and poking fun, having some satire, almost a GTA style, really can work. And you can't tell me that they weren't aiming for that. We see a lot of locations mimicked in GTA 5, and I think GTA 5 has been out for long enough that a game like Dead Island can come along and poke fun in some of the same locations, and possibly even at the same games, and not really end up feeling like it's treading in the same water or that it's copying a bunch. I think that that works perfectly for Dead Island 2. This is a perfect location, and it also fits the idea that this is an island in and of itself, something that you hear a lot of people who go to LA feel anyway, that it feels different than everything else. I really think this works well, and I think that what they've shown, whether it be the gameplay or whether it be the CGI itself, mimics exactly what I was hoping we would see from a Dead Island, and not necessarily what we've seen in the past from Dead Island leaks and Dead Island trailers. This is something that I'm really hoping reflects the end result, because what I saw looks very enjoyable and exactly what I was hoping for from a Dead Island game, especially one that was going to end up coming out of the islands into the mainland, wherever it was going to be set. I think this was a perfect place, and they've done a really good job, at least for now, showcasing how they want the game to feel and the different theme and atmosphere that they want to hit, as well as give us some hints about what we may actually be able to do when it comes to the gameplay, not only overtly with the weapons, but also on the lowdown and the subconscious and the little parts that they hint at, which might be some base building, certainly looks to be some vehicle driving, and some other elements that I can't wait to see, including party meetups and groups. We definitely saw that with the character that lost his head. Anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys like these breakdowns and my thoughts on games. If you do, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. That's it for me. I hope you guys like these. You'll see some reviews coming from me in the next couple days. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.
Por parte de Halcones, Naomi, por parte de los otros, Adi. Nada como tener algo que puedan preparar en sus refugios. Preparadas, listas, vamos. Buscarán el contacto, no van directo, será cuestión de velocidad. ¿Quién llega antes? ¿Quién llega antes? Naomi. Halcones tendrán un poco de arroz para arrancar la semana 11. Primero llega Naomi, después lo hizo Sadie. Los otros se quedan sin nada. Suministros para Jaguares y un poco de arroz para Halcón.
¡Eso, China!
¿Quién llega antes? ¡Naomi!
Si yo sé que mi hombre es más fuerte de otros, no lo... Y fue como la responsabilidad. Sí.
Oye, hija, alimentanos.
Eso. Me trajo medio kilo más de... Un poco. O sea, 600.
¿O 520? 500. Amito.
¿No lo pueden redondear a 1 kilo?
Gracias. Menudo plan. Casi no como, te lo juro, ¿verdad?
Mamá, yo tampoco, esto es inflamación.
Ya como huevo, ya tomo leche.
Estos suministros son para ustedes. Felicidades, buen trabajo. David, te veo fortalecido, vienes bien después de aquel juego de extinción. Y estas pruebas en donde de pronto también hay que poner fuerza, veo que te gustan, David. ¿Cómo te sentiste?